Hey y'all, it's Ryan. So today is Halloween and I love everything spooky season and pumpkins. So in today's drawing, we're going to draw this really cute pumpkin artwork. So grab your drawing tools and let's get to it. So for today's drawing, we're not really going to sketch it out. We're just going to start by building our background. So for that, I'm going to use the artist crayon brush, which is found in the sketching brush library in Procreate. I'm also going to use a really light color tan, so I have it set on between my orange and yellow and just a little dark and dull. So I have the opacity at 100 and my brush at 100 as well. And I am just going to lightly just kind of draw in or add in that texture in the background. Doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of everywhere you want that texture to show up. Next, I'm going to go into my painting brush set and use this. Painting brush here, and I'm just going to do the same thing. So size 100, opacity 100, and I am just going to add in that different color or that different textured layer to my canvas. Make it darker in some areas and lighter in others. And then I'm going to hold down on the smudge tool so it is set to the same brush that I was just using. And I am just going to lightly smudge those two different brushes together so it's not as obvious, whoops. So it's not as obvious that I use two brushes in the background. It's a little bit, I have the texture there, but it's not a harsh texture. Okay, I'm gonna come back into my brush and I'm gonna change my smudge. I'm gonna change that down to the artist crayon. So I'm gonna smudge with that artist crayon just a little bit too. Okay, so now I have my background set up. I'm gonna start building in my pumpkins. In my layers, I'm gonna click the plus sign. I'm gonna come into my menus, click on my actions, and make sure I have canvas. I'm gonna turn on my drawing guide, and then I'm gonna make sure I have it set to symmetry with drawing assist or assisted drawing turned on. So I'm gonna use this really pretty blue kind of teal color. And I'm gonna go back into my brushes and I'm going to use my monoline brush. So we're gonna build the pumpkin in layers and we're only going to build the pumpkin once because we're gonna change the hue and saturation later. So because I have assisted drawing on this layer, all I need to do is start from the outside. I'm gonna draw a straight line across. Okay, so it's gonna be a larger straight line. And then at the top of my canvas, I am going to draw a rounded line out and down until it matches up with my bottom line here. Now I can come in with my eraser, hold so it's set to my monoline, and I can clean up where these lines are joined. And because I still have assisted drawing turned on, when I clean it up on one side, it cleans it up on the other for me. And then I'm going to fill that layer with that color. Okay. So now I'm going to turn the opacity of this layer down. I'm going to start a new layer, still using the monoline, still using that same color. I'm going to, down here at the bottom, I'm going to make my line a little shorter. Whoops, I forgot to turn assisted drawing. So click my layer, select drawing assist. So now I'm going to draw a shorter line. Go through the same steps. I don't want that bigger. There we go. Come back in with my eraser. those lines up a little bit and then fill it. Now here, I'm going to, at the top, in the middle where my line is, I'm going to kind of make a heart. Whoops, turn it back on my brush. Make a heart and join it down with that pumpkin. So that way it forms kind of that, the bumps on the top of the pumpkin for me. Go. And I'm going to fill that in. Okay. Same thing, come in, select the N and turn the opacity down. Add a new layer. Drawing assist. I'm going to do the same thing, except this will be the smallest line down here at the bottom. Oops. Okay. Go and fill. Okay, so now I have my different layers of my pumpkin built in. I'm gonna come into my layers and turn the opacity all the way back up on all of them. And I'm gonna start adding in shading so that you can tell where my different sections are. So in my pumpkin, I'm gonna come down to my bottom layer, tap the plus sign to create a new layer, tap on it and select clipping mask. Now I'm gonna stick with this same color, but on the end, I'm gonna change the blend mode to multiply. So it's going to automatically be darker for me. In my brushes, I'm going to select the noise brush, and I have it set at about, let's bump it up to about 50. I'm gonna turn on drawing assist. So again, whatever I do on one side will be done on the other. And that top layer is right about here. So I'm just going to lightly color in that shadow. I'm gonna add a little bit more on the bottom. But because I am using that blend mode of multiply, it's darker for me. I don't have to worry about selecting multiple colors or anything like that. Okay. Okay, there's the first one. Now I'm going to repeat those steps for my second layer. So click the plus sign, tap the layer, make it a clipping mask, and change the blend mode to multiply. Still using my noise brush. And that layer was about here. Ooh, you know what I forgot to do? Is turn on my drawing assist. Tap that again, turn on drawing assist. There we go. Now we're cooking. Okay. For my last layer, tap the plus sign, make it a clipping mask, but I'm not going to turn on drawing assist. I am going to set it to multiply. And I am just going to kind of just focus on the center and the bottom of this layer for the shadow. Okay. So now that I have my pumpkin layers done, I am going to create the stem that's on top of it. But first I want to resize what I have so far. I'm just going to move it down a little bit so I can draw a nice big stem and then resize it all together. So for now, I'm going to put my stem on the top so I can see and make sure everything is closed. And I'm just going to select a green from my color wheel and make it a little darker. my brush, I'm gonna go back to monoline. Okay. So you can do whatever kind of stem you want. I like having a little curly Q in it. And then I'm gonna close at the bottom and fill it in. Okay. So I know this won't be seen, it'll be in the back of it, but I still wanna make sure of that. I like what I'm seeing up here. Go. Okay, so I'm going to select that. I have it on freeform, so I'm going to just pull this out to make it a little wider here. Okay. So now I can drag and hold. I hold that layer and drag it all the way so that it's in the back. I make it a little bit wider here. Color that in. Okay. There we go. So now I'm going to come in and add a little bit more texture into my pumpkin layers. So just like I did with my darker layers, I'm going to click the plus sign to create a new layer, tap it to make it a clipping mask, but this time I'm going to set the blend mode to screen. I'm going to come back to that blue that I had. I'm going to change my brush to the Stucco. I'm going to turn it up all the way. Opacity and the size, I'm going to have it set, let's do 60. So because I have that screen set, it's going to make it automatically lighter for me. I don't have to worry about having all of these different colors in a color palette. I'm really just using the one. So I don't have drawing assist turned on because I want it to look different on both sides. I'm gonna come in with that smudge tool and smudge just a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to repeat those steps for my next layer. Smudge a little bit. Okay. And then my last layer, big mask, screen. This I'm only going to add the lighter texture up top. Turn the opacity down on that to about 50. Smudge. Okay. So there we have our completed pumpkin. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select the top layer, swipe to the right on all layers that have to do with my pumpkin, and select group. So now I'm going to rename this Pumpkin 1. I'm going to swipe to the left and click duplicate. I'm going to tap that layer and click flatten. So now I can turn off that first one. Now I have this full pumpkin to play around with. I'm going to resize it just a hair and move it back into the center. Okay, so here's where things are gonna get really fun, I think. So I have my main pumpkin. I have my original that I'm not gonna mess with. I'm going to swipe to the left on my flattened pumpkin and click duplicate. I'm going to select this one and kind of move it off to the side. I'm gonna make this smaller for now. In my actions up at the top, I'm gonna click adjustments and click hue, saturation, and brightness. So I'm gonna change the hue of this pumpkin. And you can change it to whatever color you want. Getting a little funky here. I'm gonna change it all the way down to the red. My saturation, I'm gonna bump up to about 70%, so it's nice and bright. And then same with my brightness. I'm gonna bump that up to about 55. I'm gonna select it again, but this time I'm gonna select freeform. And I'm gonna make this pumpkin skinny and then move it down to the bottom. Also gonna flip it horizontally so the stem, they're facing in towards each other. Okay, so now I have 2 different pumpkins. I'm gonna do one more, same steps. I'm gonna select my first one, swipe to the left, click duplicate. Select it and resize it just to bring it over to the side. Come into my hue, saturation, and brightness. I'm gonna try and make this a really funky purple. There we go. Let's mess with the saturation a bit. Bring it up to 70. Let's see. I'm gonna turn the brightness down to about 48. So this one, I'm gonna bring down. This one I'm gonna stretch out a little bit to make it a little bit wider than the others. Okay, I'm gonna come back into my first blue one. Bring that size up a little bit, make it a little taller. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in and reposition the pumpkins until I get them to a spot where I like them. Okay. There we go, that looks good. So then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna add a shadow wherever my orange and purple are sitting over that blue. So on my blue pumpkin, I'm gonna add a new layer. So I'll make it a clipping mask. I'm gonna go back to my noise brush, and this time I am gonna change the color down to a dark gray. So I have my noise brush set to about 50. And wherever they overlap, I am just going to draw in that shadow. Okay. Now coming into my menu and my adjustments, I'm going to add a blur. Take that blur up to 10. And then in that layer, I'm going to turn the opacity down to about 50. So it's just barely there, you can just see it, and it adds a little bit of depth to it. Okay, so I really like, and I want to add in some vines kind of coming in, going behind all of my pumpkins. So I'm going to add one vine above my blue layer, but it's going to be behind my orange and purple. I'm going to come back to my green. I'm going to change my brush to dry ink. So because this is going to be behind the orange, I can start here and I can just draw in some fun, funky vine shapes and then add in some leaves off to the side of them. Color those in. I'm gonna do the same thing on top of my purple, so add a new layer and just draw in the vine wherever you want. Add in some leaves to it. And then last, I'm gonna do the same thing with my orange. Okay, the last step that I'm going to do is add a shadow underneath everything. So I'm going to come into my layers, put the layer at the very bottom, change my color to black. I'm going to go back to my monoline. I'm just going to draw an oval behind them, drag to fill, come into my adjustments, select blur, set that blur up to 25, come into that layer, and now I'm going to turn that opacity down to about 40. And I can move this around, resize it to get it where I like. Turn off my drawing guide.
Thank you so much for drawing with me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are posted. Hope to see you soon!